let's just jump to it. What are your thoughts? Luke hovering over Ben and any of the scenarios. I think we get three different scenarios. We get Luke's version, we get Kylo's version, and then we get a balance in between the two, which was still Luke's version, so it could have still been slightly embellished for his side to make him not look as bad. But we'll assume the last one was the truth. In any of the scenarios or that whole storyline, what were your thoughts on that?
Sure, and I didn't see it at first. It came later, the Rashomon, which we can talk about a little later too. The film that talks about a crime that happened from these different perspectives of the victims that were part of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the indifferent. But the point is that we learn these scenarios, these three different scenarios, and you're right. You probably do assume that last one was probably closest to the truth. And it does bring into that whole, equation, Obi-Wan's line, from a certain point of view. And so, from Ben's point of view, it does look like, Luke's about to kill me here. But at the same time, from Luke's...
Plus, if you're just waking up, just putting on a human level, if you're waking up, your brain... And I thought about this. I told you my computer was rebooting here before we started the show. And I was like, it's slow when it starts up. And I thought, well, so does my brain.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, my computer. Then we were talking about simulation theory earlier, and I'm like, see, my computer is a brain. I knew it, or vice versa. Like they kind of operate in the same way. But back on this point, it's just funny that, he's coming out of a sleep and he sees that. I mean, not only is he holding the lightsaber, but, you could misjudge a lot of different things very quickly. I mean, your senses are heightened in some cases. I know when I first wake up in the morning, I hear things very loudly. Everything is very loud to me. And then throughout, I have to turn, if I left the TV on downstairs, I will have to turn the TV down. And I was watching it like that all night, but now it's way too loud. And then I go back to watch later, and I'm like, it's too low. Mm-hmm. So even that your senses are all distorted when you first wake up in the morning. Is my point. So how much is Ben lying in that scene? I don't know.
Yeah, and everything can be embellishment. It's just like when someone says, there was a fight between these people, and it's like that guy. Oh man, he was so mad, and he was just.
It's human. It's human nature to leave out parts of stories that make you look worse.
Right.
Even when you're being true, and you're like, I made a mistake. There might still be certain little points you're leaving out because, man, that makes me look even worse.
Yeah.
So people do that all the time. I do it. So,
everyone does.
Everyone does. Everybody's made mistakes and had to apologize for things. So,
Could I real quick on that?
You want to go on the Rashomon? Is that how you say it?
Sure, Rashomon. It's a great film. Yeah, I don't have the chance to watch it all the time because it's really one of those artsy art house kind of films. It's very it's in 1950s. Kurosawa, like you and I talked about, on the podcast, the Star Wars podcast. Of course, George Lucas is big fan of Kurosawa's work, Hidden Fortress and A New Hope. There's just so many parallels, and this one. In Rian Johnson's sort of way to bring in a George Lucas love of Kurosawa into this film, I feel fell flat because when it really did come down to it, the facts still remain the same. Whereas Rashomon, the facts were distorted throughout that whole scenario. Get the chance to watch it. It is so much more of an emotional road trip for all characters when you actually see them tell their stories, and everyone's there struggling with how to put these three stories together and come up with.
Do you feel like that the reason why the emotional resonance isn't there is because we don't know when Kylo Ren is telling the truth or when he's not, so we don't know what he actually ever feels. We don't really ever know for sure. Even when he's with Han in The Force Awakens, is that an act? Does he really feel that? We know he kind of feels something after he kills Han. There's that look on his face. It's acted in such a way that you have to believe they're portraying it as that something happened to him inside emotionally. He did feel something at that point. But when he's telling Han, I want to change and I want that, obviously he was baiting him into it. So none of that was really true, or it was true from his point of view. But really what I mean by helping me is you dying. That's what's going to help me. And really he kind of kills Han in the same way that he kills Snoke. In a roundabout way, he just suckers somebody into it. Really, so this is like Kylo's calling card. It's very similar now that I think about it. And I'd never thought about that. But really, it's It is. And then the lightsaber is right there beside them. It just ignites and you're dead. He has the lightsaber there, and he just has to ignite it. He doesn't have to swing. He's set it up. He set up the scenario. So to me, this tells me something about Kylo's character. Maybe he's smarter than Anakin Skywalker.
Maybe, yes. And he's got something on Snoke, too, that, he realizes what Snoke can see in his heart and his mind and all of these things, and he was able to manipulate his so-called master and, take him out. And, not only is he taking out his master, but he's taken out his own true father. And so apparently Kylo needs no master when it really comes down to it, that he really does, strive for that kind of control.
Well, the great thing with his character is that the chains that Anakin Vader was never able to break free of, from being an actual labeled slave to a Jedi who, I'm not saying the Jedi were evil, but very strenuous, very strict.
Yes.
Very indoctrinated. This is the way you have to act. And when he didn't, there was repercussions for that. They let him get away with some stuff. But then he's Vader, and then he is nothing more than a slave at that point for the Emperor, both mind and what's left of his body. He's a slave. So could Kylo's character be this breaking the chains and no, I don't even have it's like a complete liberation of this character, and he's like, I'm going to be more than Vader. That's the point. It's not to be Vader. It's not to be the same as Vader. It's to be more than Vader could ever be. That should be the goal. If I'm on the dark side and I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, how's the best way that we can really make you a super dark, powerful bad guy? What's the end game here? How do we do that? That would be the goal to me.
And in fact,
looking at it from their side.
In fact, him bringing Rey before Snoke, that whole thing, you could even tell in him, it's like, this isn't really accomplishing my goals. He's not even satisfied when he does it. He's doing it because he's, under orders essentially to do it, and she turned herself in.
And there's more questions. He's obviously interested in Rey for some reason. Is that because of her parentage, and he's lying about it to play into her fears? Because it's already been established that is her worst fear. She even calls herself a nobody, a scavenger, and stuff like that in The Force Awakens. It's set up. It's been set up. And then we see the cave scene where she sees herself, which to me symbolizes you're alone. It's you, an infinite amount of you, but it's just you, and you're still alone in the universe. And then she tells him this. She tells him what happened down there. When she starts narrating it, that's her discussion with Kylo, when they touch the hands and all this mess. So at this point, he knows what her worst fear is, and all he's doing is just using it against her. To me, so this should be like Kylo's deception. Is he this deceiver, and he's smarter than he acts around Snoke, or finally he got the courage around Snoke, or whatever the case was? I don't know. Yeah. So, what do you think about them actually just killing Snoke with no resolution to making him interesting? You kill somebody off, and then but when you're not interested in them, how significant is the death?
When you're not interested in the character and they kill them off?
I mean, they didn't give us we might have been interested on Snoke because of the possibilities that could have been in the character, but at the end of the day, they gave us no reason to care about Snoke, in my opinion.
I see, yeah. No, I get what you're saying there, and so...
his death, and if you feel the same way as me about his character, then how does that play in? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in the case of his death and all of that, again, that unpredictability thing. Let's just be unpredictable to be unpredictable. Snoke. I felt like in so many ways, he was pushing the buttons. Everyone's actually, now that you mention it, everyone's pushing each other's buttons. Everyone's looking for the weaknesses in the other characters to expose emotional weaknesses. It's like Rey's parentage, an emotional weakness. General Hux, throwing, Poe in there and taunting him, tooling with him, and all of these things. Everyone's trying to pick the lock, essentially. Kylo's lock is not getting picked. Even though Snoke is trying to do that to him, all he's doing is, in fact, actually doing what you're saying.
Kylo's cowering down to him, is he holding back? Is he acting that way? Is it just an act to seem inferior to Snoke to trick him? I mean, I think that's possible.
Yeah, and I see that because, everyone seems to be, using the Force to read each other's minds in a sense, but there's portions of it that they can hold back on. There's portions of, Rey can see Kylo and his surroundings, and then it's not vice versa. Yes, I know Snoke arranged it and all, but there's limitations to what can be seen. When Luke is reading, Kylo laying there in bed, he's trying to pick the locks of his brain and all that, and starts to unravel what's going on in the layers there. And I imagine if somebody was literally picking my brain, I would wake up too. And so everyone seems to be doing this. This is kind of a more of a new thing with the Force, except for in the original trilogy, it was always, I feel the conflict in you, but that's kind of where it begins and ends. I feel there's conflict. Well, yeah, but specifically what that conflict was, Snoke knows the triggers for Kylo. Kylo knows the triggers for Rey, and so when Snoke went too far, I feel is what he asked for in so many ways with Kylo, for him to ultimately betray him and all that. Now, and this is not a parallel with Vader and the Emperor, because his character changed. Kylo, has he changed? I don't see that. I still see Kylo, with the darkness in him, and even now, and I don't, I guess I don't see the redemption in him. We got little glimpses.
What do you call it? Isn't he? I remember we had a psychologist on, and we diagnosed him with something. Of course, that was just based on The Force Awakens. I feel like you could probably do, another little mind trip on him here.
Sure.
I almost want to feel. I mean, I think he has a lot of just simple term sociopathic. That's what he is. Like he has a lot of traits in that way, because he just changes to his situation. He's like a chameleon almost, in a way. Yeah. It's like Snoke expects me to feel bad and be inferior. Okay, I'm going to act like a wounded dog. Rey, he needs to be compassionate or something with her, like he kind of, and then he's like speaking softly to her, and then when she doesn't respond to that, he kind of loses it, like he's not under control, so he starts getting angry about it, and he's like, why don't you just listen to me, kind of thing. Like, so he it's almost like he's trying to be a sociopath, but then his anger just gets the best of him, which I would think that would be a trait of not being a sociopath, because you wouldn't be triggered if you were. If you're a sociopath, nothing should really bother you on that emotional level that way. Yeah. So, or is the anger part of the act? Like, is he just an actor on the grandest stage, like just tooling with everybody? Like, I'm just going to play my part until it's my time to take control. I don't know. I'm probably giving this way too much credit than it's worth. Actually, this would be a good storyline, in which means they won't do it.
I think, with Kylo, anyways, maybe with his ambitions and goals of becoming greater than Vader in a lot of ways, that he, that when he fails at becoming greater than Vader, because if you think about it, did you ever see Vader throw a fit in the same way Kylo did? You never did. Yeah, he force choked some of the commanders under him that, failed him, but then it was like, all right, apology accepted, and then you're in control. But
yeah, Anakin's version of throwing a fit was just cold-bloodedly killing sand people and stuff, So
right.
Like, he wasn't like tossing them around and ragdolling them, or just stomping his feet, which was basically what Kylo was doing. He wasn't even killing people, really. He was just like, throwing a fit and just showing people how mad he was. Like, Anakin's just like, I'm not messing around with that. I'm just pissed and I'm going to kill you because you killed my mom, basically. So, yeah. I mean, that's how Anakin throws. I mean, obviously Anakin lost control on many occasions, but he still expresses it with anger and violence, but he would just direct it directly onto people.
But interestingly enough, put Anakin in the Vader suit. Now it's like a complete change in the character. Now, with the suit on, it's almost like he's got to have that perception of himself that he is in control of his faculties, because he'll walk in and he has presence, of course, and all that.
Yeah, nobody could see him. Who knows who he really? How many people really know who he really is? So there's this. And I think that's partly why Kylo would probably why would Kylo wear the mask? He doesn't need it to breathe. Why does he wear it? Well, It's an intimidation fact. I mean, it's just really simple psychology. It's just it's as simple as that. It's an intimidation factor. And it not only intimidates other people, it also brings him more confidence, knowing that it intimidates those people, and the fact that they can't see his face. Like, some people have a thing, if you can't see my face, I'll say anything I want. You see that all the time on the internet. You can't see people's face, and they will literally say anything and everything on the internet. So, I mean, it's that kind of mentality. I think if I cover myself up and you don't know who's doing it, then you can't blame me for it.
Yeah, hiding behind the mask, and there was the trigger, of course, Snoke. Because what happened right after that? You're just a boy in a mask.
You should take the mask, and it's a good point, I guess, that take the mask off and be a man. I think that was the moral message there, and even though it was from a bad guy to a bad guy, I think that there's a point to be made there.
Yeah, but yeah, he did smash the mask right, of course, after that, and that point is that,
it did anger him. I mean, Snoke is not in front of him at that point, and he's displaying anger, so at that point, you have to say it's probably not an act. Like, he's not just doing it for show to give somebody an impression. He's just literally triggered. Go get my shit.
Yeah, and I'm still, with the death of Snoke, your word and mine too, disappointed, because the possibilities, like you said, there's so many possibilities with this character.
There's so many possibilities, and one was with the Rey character. They shove it in our face all movie in The Force Awakens about she's staying on Jakku for her family. She reiterates at least 2 different times that she has to go back to Jakku. She said once she's left Jakku, she says it to Finn, she says it to Han. So she has to go back there. We're going to get BB-8 to wherever he's going. I got to go back. I got to wait on my family. It's thrown in my face. She has the conversation with BB-8. They'll come back for me one day. We see a vision with her. She actually sees Kylo Ren in this vision before she's actually ever seen him in real life. She'll meet him 5 minutes later, but why is she seeing Kylo Ren in this vision? Is it a premonition? You have things from the past, you have things from the present, or there are also things from or for the future, or there are also things from the present. What's going on with that vision? Now, let's not answer that. It could be that could be resolved at 9, but I think your opportunity is just missed. It's going to feel like, oh, we never explained that. We needed to explain that. And I feel like that's what it's going to feel like if they try to do that in 9. And I feel like that's Rey's character. If they try to make it have any value at this point, it's just going to be like, oh, yeah, it's going to feel fixed. It's going to feel like duct taped to me, because she has no character development here. We learn nothing more about her. I hate to say this word because I know a lot of people take this term derogatory, and I don't mean it as derogatory because it's not slamming anybody. But she is a Mary Sue at this point, and so proven otherwise, all the evidence leads that she is a Mary Sue, because the simple fact that she can use the Force and I'm not talking about the piloting and all that. I know she had some background with that on Jakku. She did different things. I understand that. The lightsaber thing, Snoke even throws it in his face. A girl who's never held a lightsaber, and then, in the whole Force thing, Snoke was appalled in The Force Awakens that she was able to deflect his mind abilities and not get her mind read. He was appalled by this and angry, and she's strong with the Force, and Kylo wants to teach her. Very evident. Twice he has tried to convert her now, saying you need a teacher, and this, that, and the other. So, but Rey never changes. She's stoic. She just stays the same, and there's no explanation for why she's so good at doing any of these things. And she has no emotional development anywhere along the line. So I mean, and then the whole parent thing is just salt in the wound. It's like you could have done anything with it, and it would have been anything but what you did with it. And because at that point it was just, now we're not doing the shock, because there were some people who thought she would be a nobody. So you weren't shocking people with that. That was a definite topic of discussion in the Star Wars community. Maybe she will be nobody. The execution of it is just poor, and it makes all the other stuff that happened before. Why did you keep talking about it? What narrative point did it have to it if this is all it was? It's just utter disappointment.
Yeah, let's lead you down the rabbit trail and then lead you to a dead end. And that is where, I do feel like...
Narratively, it's just bad storytelling. It doesn't mean that people can't come from nothing in real life, but narratively, it's a boring story.
Right. Right, just like in the what I've said about that whole Canto bite, and then let's push this moral message of this guy builds weapons for both sides. Oh, that's bad. We know that's bad. We don't need it shoved down our throats. The point is that we didn't come to this film for that reason. We came to this film to get involved with these characters. Enjoy it, yes, but
one of the first things I said after originally seeing it, about a week or two later, when I was able to decompress everything, I said, I went to see a Star Wars movie, and I just didn't get that. That was my feelings on it. A year ago.
Yeah, and with the point of Kylo and Ren, and we're led down this path that there's a connection between the two of them. They keep seeing each other, and I do get that what they were trying to do with that, and that it was trying to lead somewhere. Where I felt it fell short is in the fact that, again, like you said, is like, where was the growth in the characters? We watch Star Wars because we are so involved in the characters. One thing Star Wars actually has above, what I appreciate, and sorry for the kaiju fans out there, but there's not a lot of characters we get involved with because the human character is almost secondary to the monsters. The monsters are the characters, but how much can you flesh out? Godzilla came from this, and he has this experience, and he feels this way. No, we're really not involved in the emotions of him. We are involved in the emotions and backstory and all of that of the Star Wars character because they are, human, and so we relate to them on that level, and so we do want to know their backstory and what motivates them, and why. Mysteriously this happened and leads us here. So, we're led down this path of saying, what is the connection between these two? Oh, this is going to lead somewhere. We're going to see some growth in these characters. We're going to see some change in these characters. And then, guess what? It didn't happen. We see the two of them and, reaching out, join me, Empire Strikes Back. Join me and we can rule together as father and son. In this case, it's join me and we'll rule together as Kylo and Rey, and it'll be great. And so I did see that, but, I knew it wasn't going to go where it was going to go. I know she wasn't going to join him, and she's...
Yeah. There was a lot of people talking before the movie, is she going to go... And they tried to put some marketing out there where it was like, choose your side, but nobody switches sides in the whole movie. So to me, it's like, it's mixed message even in the marketing, because you're almost promising something and then just not delivering on it. Like, it's like you're hinting at something is going to happen, but then nothing actually happens.
Yeah.
Except 2.5 hours just passed, and you literally have some visual information to decompress. But as far as a narrative to really decompress here and talk about, this was great storytelling, took a lot of thought and a lot of effort, I don't see that anywhere in this movie. I'm sure I know people worked very hard on it. I'm not disvaluing that. I'm saying the guy who wrote it probably didn't do much, didn't put a lot of effort into it, besides the actual physical part of just putting it together. Can't imagine there was many rewrites to this or anything like that. Maybe that's an unfair statement, but I'll go ahead and make it anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Because Ryan, Ryan Johnson at this point kind of rubs me the wrong way anyway, so I'm not really worried about offending a guy like that. So, and he ruined Star Wars, so heck with him. No, I don't want to get too personal, but yeah, he's wipe that grin off your face, dude. The Leia Superman scene. Let's start wrapping this up. Leia Superman, Mary Poppins, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you could say the physics of space in the Star Wars universe are different than ours, and it's not a vacuum, and General Grievous survived out in space. I guess you can rationalize that and say, well, they were technically in the atmosphere of Coruscant or something of that name. Look, we're suspending our disbelief here, but I think most people feel this was like crossing a line. It was above and beyond.
It was, and in fact, we always knew she was force sensitive. Sure, she's got connections to Luke, and that, but it was on a very limited basis. She's not manipulating objects. She's not, manipulating the laws of physics or anything like that to anyone's advantage. And here she is, at the moment of, what could have been her death scene, and she's able to, perform this miraculous thing. And I guess, again, it's like, it's almost like saying, everyone look over here, look over here, look over here. Oh, We threw you a curveball. Did you see that coming? No, you didn't. Ask me what it means. You know what? I just do not like that storytelling. They lost their bridge. Okay. Again, what happened? What changed? There was something leading up because Kylo was going to take out the bridge and he didn't. There was something there, something in that character that we were going to find interesting. But again, throw us the unpredictability. The other TIE fighters took it out.
So does he not? He can sense her from that far away. So you would think at some point in the movie he realizes she's still awake and conscious and alive, but then he's just like, no, let them all die, let them just blow up the fleet, don't stop it, Rey, like let's just blow them up, forget the past. And at that point, that whole speech, that whole lecture, and you've got Rey crying here saying, I'm nobody, and it's almost like now I can almost interpret that as this is Rian Johnson and this is his interpretation of the fanboy. Rey's nobody. And then you have Kylo come right in and say, forget the past, forget the Jedi, forget the Sith, forget the rebels, forget the Empire. And then immediately what do? You have Haldo call them rebels, and then everybody now we're the rebels again. Even though we're narratively kind of telling you through this character in a subconscious way to forget all that. We're starting Star Wars anew. This is kind of like a reboot right in the middle of a trilogy. And then, but no, now it's not. It's actually, what this movie is actually a bad edit of The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
It really is. There's the slow chase through space.
Yeah.
Worse than it was a read. They end up, it's just, everything's just edited into different places. Instead of having the snow planet, the white planet with walkers on it in the beginning of the movie, they have it at the end. It's it's the same. What's on the ground is different, but the visual setting is the exact same.
Yeah.
And they're doing the exact same.
Yeah.
It is Empire. You have this reveal. You're nobody. There's so many parallels to Empire Strikes Back. It's just a worse version of it. But people get on The Force Awakens for being a rehash of A New Hope, but they're like, oh, at least it was like a decent rehash of A New Hope. This is like people were saying this is just new, and that's why you don't like it. It's something unique. No, it's not unique. It's Empire reshot and edited very poorly. To me, that's what this movie is. It's Empire edited bad.
And then let me, smash up Canto Bite for a while. Bespin and Canto Bite here, and not quite because we meet a character there, of course, who has a betrayal in a sense. We've got Empire.
Bespin, it's the Bespin Canto Bite. Yes, It's the same parallel. They basically go to meet the Lando character who's going to betray them. Except he didn't reverse back. He didn't do the double switch. Like he wasn't the triple agent or whatever.
Right.
Like Lando ended up being. But yes, it's very, very similar. It's the city in the clouds. And now this is this rich city. You belong here amongst the class. And then what is Canto Bite? The class. It's Empire, dude. It's Empire.
It is.
Shot for shot, they just edited it up differently. But you can piece it like Act 1, Act 3, and all the scenes start mirroring up. It's actually rather sickening. Actually.
Yeah, but then let's throw this other curveball in there that I feel again is going to lead nowhere. Where we have the parallels with the horse racing and whatever the creatures were, and it's like, oh, so sad.
And they make a big deal out about the kids there too.
Yes,
like they're going to become something by the end of the movie. Like, I'm the next Luke. I don't know. Maybe he is.
Yeah. The Jedi force sensitive children and all that. We've seen that in Rebels, Clone Wars, all that force-sensitive children that, whatever, and they're starting to experiment with that. Apparently that must be something that happens pretty often, and you can't stop it, whatever. But, so that whole, narrative that we were going to, again, a moral message that we were going to drive home, but really we just needed an action scene of those creatures smashing through the walls of the Bespin Canto Bright.
Is that all of this really, it's not that it leads nowhere, it just ends up being like it's a futile effort on their part, and it actually ends up giving away the plan of the Resistance / Rebels to get away. So they just end up sabotaging their own side. And again, it all goes back to the point of the disobeying orders. And it's like, so is the moral message here that we're not supposed to disobey authority? Or is it that We are. Like, because it's like Rey should be listening to Luke. If by that standard and notion, Rey should listen to Luke. Yeah, you're right, Master Luke. The Jedi were pretty crappy, and maybe they shouldn't come back. You're the authoritative figure here. You know more than me. You're more knowledgeable than me. I'm not going to use my heart and and what I believe in here. I'm going to bow to you because you're the authoritative figure here and you know more than me. So that's not what she does, though. So, like, that's where again, you can chalk this up to, well, everybody's different. Characters react in different ways. But to me, but there's so much of that in this movie. I don't know what he's trying to tell us morally. Like, what does Rian Johnson believe morally? Like, what is his stance on this? Because I feel like he's trying to tell us, but he's not doing a good job of it.
Yeah, well, it's conflicted. We're trying to get the messages, and we're not quite on board with it. It's almost as if he is trying to confuse us, but are you really? Was that your goal, to confuse us with the moral message here? In fact, actually, most of classic Star Wars has always been, that distinction between good and evil and all of that, and the whole idea.
Very great in this movie, and a lot of people were calling for that. They wanted it to be more gray and subtle, and this is what this is what you kind of get. I mean, you're talking about when you change that. People don't think, well, let's muddy it up a little bit and change things up. But what you're doing there, that's really, at the end of the day, is the foundation of everything Star Wars is built on. It's not the Force and the Jedi. It's the fundamental type of storytelling that Star Wars was originally based on, and that's not what we got in this movie. So it just doesn't even feel like it's in the same universe now.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, well, and they've already gotten us to doubt the whole goal of the Resistance. So yeah, these people are selling weapons to both sides. So what does that mean for the Resistance? We're just as bad.
The Resistance is zapping traitors, and like traitors. I thought this was a volunteer thing.
Yeah,
like now you're not allowing people to leave. Now who's the fascist?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that whole idea, is muddying up the waters. I thought that we were supposed to be on the side of the Resistance as viewers, and then this one said it's like, it's now it's all muddy and all that, and maybe we're being manipulated and things. And I guess I kind of see that, but at the same time, we do need to have the protagonist that we follow along that tells us, that they're not going to get everything right, but occasionally, in the end, they're still going to be our heroes. And so, who
is the protagonist of this film? Like, if you had to pick one, I don't think it's Rey. She's not in the third act.
Yeah.
Like, you can't basically just completely erase she was definitely the protagonist of The Force Awakens. In this movie, basically, the way I like to sum it up is she becomes fodder she becomes the MacGuffin for Luke and Kylo in a way.
Yeah.
She is what's bridging them to have a confrontation again. That's her role in the movie. And a lot of people want to talk about people who don't like The Last Jedi are sexist. To me, what happened with Rey's character is the ultimate definition of belittling a character right in front of our faces, whether it's a man or a woman. I don't care. They took a very interesting, could be interesting because of possibilities character in Rey, and then just do nothing with her and make her basically, in my opinion, a secondary character, and basically I feel like she's just objectified in this movie because we don't learn anything about her. So how do I have any emotional connection to her? I don't know anything about her except that she was from Jakku. That's all I know. And you refuse to tell us anymore and expect me to keep caring. Like,
right.
You can only dangle that carrot so long, and it's, they still have episode 9. Yes, they do. But I just feel like episode 9 it's either going to be more of the same, or it's going to feel like the biggest Band-Aid ever created.